Hello everybody, it's Andrew here for Vortex Studios. In this video we're going to be talking about some severe weather potential today across Florida, maybe into Alabama as well, and maybe like extreme southern Mississippi. But yeah, let's talk about it. So here is a look at an advanced radar program called a GR2 Analyst. And currently we are looking at the current radar view. We have a couple areas of mini supercells. Excuse my sneeze, but we got a couple areas of mini supercells right here. Let me get a little bit of a bigger color so y'all can see. Right here, a couple mini supercells here. We have a more matured supercell that's coming onshore right here. We also have other multiple areas of mature convection offshore, with some of these being supercellular as well. Here is the supercell that is coming onshore, and it's got a rotation signature. It's a bit messy on radar. Looking at it, it's right here's your rotational signature. It's not bad, pretty solid rotational signature. Now further north, looking at these supercells, these have mini supercells. These have a bit of a rotational signature too, so it's something to watch. Now I'm pretty sure these are elevated due to the fact that the dew points are very low in these areas and only in the 50s, so those won't be tornadic. This storm has tornadic potential. Looking at the correlation coefficient, there's not really much there right now. Further south you go, let's look at our special res velocity here. Look at that. We have a decent area of rotation there. About to head up toward Port St. Joe. And we have a couple other areas of organized rotation as well. In the middle of the Gulf of Mexico with organized supercells there. The general movement with these storms is east-northeast. Actually, that most recent radar scan for that Destin storm, that's looking pretty good for all aspects of it. So that might produce a tornado soon. It's also got a special weather statement up on it too, or did have a special weather statement. But aside from GR2 Analyst, let's go and look at kind of everything else. So the Storm Prediction Center just issued a mesoscale discussion for these areas, saying that a local onshore coast risk may resolve over the next couple of hours. Instability is meager right now, which is going to not really bring a good threat, and the potential for surface-based storms is limited, so no watch will be issued for now. I do expect there to be a couple tornado watches later on, though. A few tornadoes are going to be possible and locally damaging wind gusts. The highest risk is going to be anywhere in that slight risk, and then we also have a marginal extending out from that. Tornado risk is 5%. We also have a 15 wind risk, and then we also have a no fail risk. The next day, we have a couple areas of severe weather to watch out for. One for the eastern coast of North Carolina into the Outer Banks, and then one for most of Florida. I think the Florida one is going to go slight risk, probably for something like this will go slight tomorrow morning, I think. Something like that. It'll be a weird looking slight risk like that, I feel like. 5% wind, and then 5 hail, or no hail, and then 2 tours well. Current look at the environment, very lackluster instability of 100 to 250 Mixler Cape advecting onshore. Service-based instability is really meager as well. That will increase as we get further into the night, though. Some areas of 500 service-based Cape and around a little bit over 500 ML Cape will become more likely. And with that, you get very meager instability in the middle and upper levels as well. Now, the effective SRH is not very good because of your lower instability right now. Your 1 kilometer SRH isn't terrible, though. It will increase as we get later on into the night, and your greatest tornado risk will probably maximize in here. But another pretty big tornado risk will resolve right in here. Along the coastal shores once we get into the overnight hours, which we'll talk about in a little bit here. Here's a look at your 500 millbar trough. This is from the 15Z run of the SREF. This is a ensemble guidance. Here is tomorrow morning. This will eject onto Florida, and there will be a QLCS ongoing, probably around here at this point, maybe onshore. It'll race across Florida, bringing them all hazards. Once we get to around this point, it'll be further into Florida, and we have a very sustained low pressure in place, bringing a significant winter storm to portions of the southeastern United States. Now, that will be covered in a different episode, but this one only mainly severe weather. And then at this point at 0Z, we have a very strong mid-level jet that's going to be ejecting across North Carolina, South Carolina. With it, a severe risk is possible across coastal areas. It's going to be a very isolated and very limited severe risk, but you can't roll out an isolated tornado. Now let's look at the 850 millibar winds. This is again a mean. So this is going to be around 60 tonight. This is our first maximum tornado zone. I feel like it's going to be right in here and portions of Florida, right there around the Big Bend. Then right around 12Z, I think we're going to have another maximum band of potential is going to be in here. And both of those could have 40 to 50 knots of low level flow at 850 millibars. And as we get throughout the day tomorrow, it's going to get a little bit weaker as those dynamics pass on to North Carolina, but we still are probably going to have a few severe thunderstorms in Florida. Enough, in my opinion, to probably warrant a slight risk. Now, let's look at the probabilities for Mixed Cape above 500. Around 60 tonight, there's around a 10% chance we see Mixed Cape values above 100 along the coast. In Florida tomorrow, around 12Z, there is around a 10% chance as well, 20% looming close. Now, Florida, it looks like right around 18 to 21Z, we're probably going to see around 500 or Mixed Cape or higher start to affect across portions of southern Florida into the Keys and into southeastern Florida as we get around 21Z, and that's probably when the squall line is going to re-strengthen. Weather Prediction Center-wise, here's the overall hazard map. Here's day 2, and then there's day 3. We're going to look at the fronts, though, specifically. That's the 21Z front, so the warm front's a little bit further north. Here's 0Z at this point, and that we're getting around 0Z now, about 20 minutes, and it'll be 0Z. At 6Z, we're expecting some sort of severe weather to be happening around the triple point there with the first surface low. 12Z, we're likely going to have a pretty good QLCS ongoing into the coast areas right there. Around 18Z, it'll probably start re-strengthening at this point. 0Z, it'll be off the coast, and we'll be worrying about a North Carolina risk. Excessive rain, there's a marginal for today, but nothing for tomorrow. QPF for the next 3 days. Some pretty intense amounts are possible. I wouldn't be surprised if we do see a slight risk upgrade for portions of Florida as well. Now, let's go on to the RAP model. We're going to go look at around 6Z tonight. Here's around 60, so we get a little bit more ample moisture getting pulled up into the area, and we start to see a little bit more instability. Now, that is a little bit contaminated. Let me go into preset mode and try to find something not so contaminated, because everything is going to be contaminated with a high-res model like the RAP. Or not high-res, like medium-res. Get a little bit contaminated, but at this point, see here, the meager instability, you have good low-level instability. Past that, it's really meager. You're going to have really low-topped supercells. Not going to look great. But as we get into the morning hours into Florida, this is when we're going to really want to watch. Probably around Tampa Bay. You're going to have... Now, the surface temp is likely going to be higher than 66 degrees. A lot of the models are running pretty cold for portions of Florida. Based off some of the stuff that we saw this morning. The surface temp, it's likely going to be probably a little bit higher, like 68 degrees or so. But it will be around 64, 60... Or the dew point will probably be around the same. You have a very solid photograph. You have meager instability, but with a QLCS like this, you probably still will get a few tornadoes and definitely damaging wind gusts. Look at the dynamics that the RAP is showing. Really strong shear overall, and a lot of turning within the atmosphere, so we're probably going to see embedded supercell structures. And yeah, we probably will. Let's get a little bit onto the coast there. More solid stuff. Now, as you get later into the day, around 17Z, we start to see a bit higher instability values get into the region. Bang. We start to see a little bit higher instability values you get into the region. I'm going to get a sounding that's not contaminated, or try. So let's get one right there. Now, I do think that the instability is going to be a little bit higher than what the RAP's showing at this point. Models like the HRRR show higher instability across portions of this area. And with the higher instability, you definitely see a higher severe threat as well. We see that we see the surface low starting to merge, which will probably put North Carolina into some sort, or South Carolina into some sort of risk if this scenario plays out. No, if enough moisture. A little bit off the coast there. Yeah, that's definitely enough instability. Let's go to the 21Z wrap. Let's go to a little bit later in the day. Actually, we'll go a little bit earlier with the 21Z and we'll look in like southern Florida there, right here. That's really solid. Let's go look a little bit later now, though, and we're gonna analyze these soundings that I pull in the next few runs. So let's go look at this one right here. No, let's go on the reflectivity and find a better one that's not so contaminated. Okay, that whole area with moisture is contaminated. What about right there? It'll be a little bit on the off the coast, but here's a sounding off the coast. Don't mind the contamination. There's really not too many soundings that aren't contaminated in this area. But we're looking at a very skinny instability profile that is found in the SKU-T. We have really good wind profiles here that are very veered that are veered throughout the profile with surface winds that are backed. We have a very good photograph though as well. And this would definitely provide some weak tornado risk given the dynamics and the combo of instability. It's not a great tornado risk though. I'm going to go try to find a sounding that is not contaminated in this area, but I think that's going to be a little bit hard to do because, yeah, let me go into a model like the HRRR. So let's go check out the HRRR. We're going to go to the 18Z run first. We're going to scroll through it. We're going to scroll through the 18Z run. Let me give it a second to load. So with the 18Z run, let's go to right here. This is when we're probably going to start to see some sort of tornado risk start evolving a bit better across Florida as we start to see those dynamics become a little bit more widespread on shore. Now, let's look at the surface observations. Yeah, temps are going to be around that, so. But the temps in, like, this part of Florida, like, in here, they're a little bit warmer than expected, so that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Looking at this, we're starting to see the areas of supercells kind of come on shore, bring some sort of severe risk with them. Then you go back out to the Gulf of Mexico after we get the sounding to load. Okay, so we're gonna after we get that sounding to load, and there's gonna be a good line of storms. We're gonna analyze this sounding. This is a solid sounding. We have very good low instability in these regions. Now, once you get higher than that, though, the instability drastically increases because you have no robust middle level instability, which may cost this event. That means you're gonna have very low top storms and limited instability, very marginal instability in the middle levels, shown by the Cape. You have good low-level lapse rates, terrible mid-level lapse rates. Now you have a really good photograph here. Looking at the wind shear profiles, we have really solid SRH. You really want SRH in the low levels to be 100 to 150 usually for tornado potential. Now, given that the fact that we have lower instability, you're going to want it a bit higher, and it is a bit higher. Overall wind shear, you got 56 knots of deep layer shear, effective wind shear of only 40 knots. And then you have low-level jet of 34. Well, that's overall solid. Your Storm Slinky is pretty, your Storm Slinky, this is what the storm would look like. So it'd probably look kind of like that, which would be interesting. And given the saturation and stuff, this would be pretty, HP. Now, look at this QLCS forming right here. If we get a couple discrete supercells out in front, they probably wouldn't do too much. Let me just check to see if that is correct. No, they may do a little bit of something. But we have a QLCS that's going to build. There probably will be some sort of tornado risk in here still with that band of storms. And as we move on, it gets really ramped up around 111Z. And right around the Tampa Bay area, let me get a sounding that's, oh, I did not mean to advance it that far. We'll do 10Z, and we're going to get a sounding kind of western Tampa Bay area. Bang. Very large photographs at this point. You still have limited instability, but it's slightly better than some of the other soundings. especially in the low levels. It's still really solid. You have really strong wind shear, okay? SRH in the effective layer of 300 is very significant, along with some very strong shear. This will bring a tornado threat. We have pretty low decape, so some damaging wind gusts can't be ruled out, but probably won't see too much in that nature. As we get on shore, 12Z, this starts to kind of get pretty interesting here. We click some soundings on the southern end of there. The instability goes bye-bye because of a surface cap that is the HRRR is known to have. Maybe the surface will be capped, but usually the HRRR like overdoes this surface cap right here, which is kind of weird. Something the HRRR I've seen do over like my forecasting. But as we get along here, the instability starts getting on shore a bit more, and we start to see a pretty good tornado environment evolve around 14Z. We have higher instability and a lot higher storm tops now, which is going to probably favor more robust updrafts. Still have a large hodograph with pretty solid shear. The middle level support's moving out though, but you have stronger lapse rates, especially in the low levels. Instability still looking solid with 103k. As we get around 16Z, you start to see that line kind of get a little bit more strong, and we start to see the dynamics start to move out there. They're moving into the Carolinas. Around 18Z, though, we start to see an environment evolve in southeast Florida area. I'm going to take a box sounding there. We're going to dissect it. So this is 1,000 surface-based instability with a very high cloud top. So you're probably going to get robust updrafts with this. That would mean we cannot rule out hail, given the fact that there is very strong lapse rates in the low levels, not great middle levels. Strong low-level instability means that we're probably going to see a tornado risk with this, and it's not capped at all at the surface, so that's good. There is around 162 effective SRH with around almost a 200 surface to 1 with 161. We have solid wind shear. About the sounding still. I definitely think this would probably be a all hazards type sounding. Now, as we get into the Carolinas later at night, we start to see a few embedded supercells within that band of precip. If there was a little bit more instability with this, you'd probably see a pretty significant tornado threat. But there isn't. Now, we're going to have to watch the Carolinas super closely tomorrow, but I don't think they're going to do too much. This is a little bit contaminated, so sorry, but there's a lot of stuff there. Let me just take one right here. Maybe that won't be so contaminated. Oh, that's plus frontal. We're gonna take a sounding up into like the outer banks here. So with the squall line, expect a little bit more instability than this and less capping inversion than that, but we're gonna dissect the wind profile. The wind profile is very interesting. You have a lots of veering throughout the whole atmosphere with backed winds at the surface, and backed winds at the surface are southeast winds, and you have those. Veering throughout the atmosphere is winds that start off going a different way, and then at the surface, they're going a totally different way. And at the surface, we have winds that are going southeast. So what that means is you're going to get rotation within the atmosphere and spin easily with these storms. Now, the thing with this is that you're going to have limited instability with mixed layer cape of only 200, but 3 cape is solid. It's going to be like the Florida risk, where you're not going to have robust updrafts, but you can't rule out a brief tornado with some of those storms. And as we get into the night, we start to see that this line goes further east and strengthens as it gets out into the ocean. I'll just show what it looks like when it gets up here, because some of the stuff it does is pretty funny out in the ocean. There's some really good environments out there. Yeah, you just see it go off into the shore. Don't know. Okay, well, here's the updated HRRR. Let's look at this one. We're going to look at this. So it has a more well-defined squall line at 16Z, and it has a pretty solid environment still. Not great instability at that point because there's a little bit of like a surface temperature gap. 11Z, it starts to develop a few prefrontal storms. Let's see what this is doing in here. We still have not great instability with it. Let's see in Tampa. Okay, looks like the instability got a little bit better. Now, that is a bit contaminated, so sorry for that. But that sounding did have a lot better instability. We're gonna go zoom into No, I didn't want to do that. We're gonna go zoom into Florida here. We're gonna take a sounding just north of Sarasota, in between Tampa and Sarasota. Okay, so that's what you get. It's a little bit contaminated, probably because it's a little bit too close to the squall, so I'm gonna plunk it a little bit further east. So hopefully it's not super contaminated. Okay, that's better. The LFC and LCL are disconnected with this sounding, so that means it might be hard to get a tornado with it, but we have decent instability, better than what some of the other models are showing, and with an EL a little bit higher. We've mixed air cape around 270, which is not terrible, which is pretty terrible, but with the wind profile we have here, all this shear, yeah, could definitely make up for it. Now, the LFC and LCL disconnected, usually means the storms may not be surface based, I'm pretty sure, and usually have higher, LCL heights too, given that. We're gonna go look at some of these soundings, like, out here in, the Tampa Bay area, though. Let's look at this. Up there, not Tampa, but like further north. So those are very interesting SRH values with no instability. Okay, this HRRR one is interesting. It develops a supercell near Tampa, and definitely gives it a solid environment over there. To maybe do something. And yeah, it's got 700 0 to 3 kilometer SRH. A bit of a warm nose though at what is that? 700 millibars, which may limit the potential for it. I mean, that's pretty interesting that we get convection like that to form, though. We'll have to watch it and see if this becomes a trend. Um, we'll go to Tenzi here, and it stays there. We have a nice supercell that just goes into more of it and looks like it crosses the warm front, so that wouldn't really do too much. But that's an interesting trend that we want to watch and see what happens. We'll go to 15Z a little bit later, and we'll just see if there's anything really interesting sounding-wise here to dissect. Nope, it's still got like the general same environment. So I think we're gonna want to wrap this one up. I'll just leave it on the current dew point screen. Basically the main headlines for tonight. One, is that we could see a few tornadoes tonight across portions of Florida, probably mainly contained to this general area right here. Damaging wind gusts are gonna be possible. The highest risk for damaging wind gusts is gonna be again like this area. And then into tomorrow, there's going to be a severe risk past 12Z, like into these areas, or like anywhere like here. So we're going to have to watch that, and into North Carolina. If you live in like western Florida tonight, or into the Florida Bend area and the Florida Panhandle, make sure to have a way to get alerts just in case there's a isolated severe event. That is going to do it with this one. See ya.